Cleveland and the rest of planet Earth, wherever you are. Welcome to 360 Info Network. I'm Vince Robinson. Brother Hamtonio will not be with us today, but we have two very magnificent guests that we're going to be bringing into the program in just a few moments. Just want to take this moment to remind you that there is an open house at Larchmere Arts today. My artist friends Rodney Carpenter and Bonnie Venable are there, and they have a gallery full of artwork for you. So if you're not busy today, and chances are you are, but if you have time, swing by Larchmere Arts today, 12726 Larchmere Boulevard, and take advantage of some very reasonably priced artwork. Again, Larchmere Arts, my artist friends R&B, they're selling their art today, and we definitely want you to be a part of that. Today, we are going to be talking a little bit about politics, but we're going to be talking about life as well. And we want to give you some ideas or some strategies or some things to think about as we continue to process what happened a few weeks ago when former president was elected or reelected to take that office. There's been a lot of conversation, a lot of discourse about this phenomenon. And I think there are some things that we need to unpack. So, in order to do that, I was inspired by a friend of mine, a colleague of mine. He is a retired attorney and educator, or he says he's John Q. Citizen right now, but he has been involved in education and in the field of law. His name is Dr. Silas Ashley. And I also have another good friend and colleague who is an author, and even more importantly, he is a researcher. So he spends a lot of time examining the things that are going on in our society, specifically related to the economy and the financial game. So we want to talk about that. And we also want to talk about the concept of the universe being mental, because the universe is mental. That's one of the seven hermetic laws of ancient Egypt. He wrote the book. It's called Ancient Future, The Teachings and Prophetic Wisdom of the Seven Hermetic Laws of Ancient Egypt. His name is Wayne Chandler. There you see him in front of a painting that I'm sure has some spiritual significance, and he can share if he would like to do that. We also, there you go. We also have Dr. Silas Ashley, who is actually, these brothers, I believe, grew up in the same neighborhood. Of course, Silas got tired of cold winters in Cleveland, and somehow he ended up in Miami, Florida. So there's some sunshine beaming through the blinds behind him. I'm sure he's enjoying it because we're looking at cloudy skies up here in Cleveland. So
You better believe it.
yes. So at any rate, welcome to 360 Info, both of you gentlemen. I'm very pleased to have you with us today.
It's good
So
to be here.
all right. So I'm going to be transparent and let you know that Brother Silas reached out to me earlier in the week, and he had some observations about the election. A couple of Facebook posts, lengthy posts, but worth the read, because Dr. Ashley is a man of many words, but he doesn't waste energy with his words. He gives you information, guidance, and instruction through what he does as an educator. And you were looking back at the election, Brother Silas, and you said that we kind of dropped the ball in certain ways. The Democrats dropped the ball in certain ways. There were things that they probably could have done that could have given them a victory. But the gist of what you said was not so much that we need to react to what was done. You used the term recovery. And I want to give you an opportunity to talk about what recovery means and what thought went into giving us that concept about where we are right now and what we should be doing. So, give us a little insight on that, Dr. Ashley.
Sure, Vince and the radio audience. Um, I don't want to be, and I'm not going to be, what we'll call the Monday morning quarterback. We've had a couple of weeks now of everybody giving whatever their particular assessment of the election was, and what went wrong here, what went wrong there, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. You got all of that. I want basically at this point to focus in on three areas, and I'll try not to be a wordsmith and too worthy events on this, but I think these three areas are important, and it kind of can serve also to a segue to my dear brother Wayne and his conversation as regarding to the mentality aspect of it, which is my third component part. All right, having said all that, the first component part deals with what I call the physicality of things. After what happened on Tuesday, in terms of starting the whole recovery process, you have to deal with the physical aspect of it. Now, what did I mean by physical aspect of it? To the people who are in Northeast Ohio, I can give you an example that you can readily relate to. In 2017, the Cleveland Browns football team went 0-16. They lost every game. And because they lost every game, it was required, it was imperative, it was a must-do situation that the coach and the head coach, I should say, and his staff be terminated. They had to be terminated because there was an abject failure on the part of the team to progress within the NFL. Well, that had to be done because it's called cleansing. That's the first start in cleansing. You got to get that all those poison and stuff, negativity out of you before you can start the quote recovery process in terms of moving forward. So I think his name was Jackson. He had to be terminated. That is also the case as it relates to the election we just had. It was an abject failure on the part of the Democrats. And I want to be more specific because the leadership of the Democratic Party goes through the Democratic National Committee, the DNC. When you look on the website, you look them up in Wikipedia, excuse me, it says they are the ones that coordinate and do the leadership local, state, and on a national level. Well, this election resulted in an abject failure for that particular party. And as a result, it looks like we have lost the House, definitely have lost the Senate, all right, definitely have lost the executive branch, which is the presidency, already had the Supreme Court is now 6-3. The state legislature, for the most part, and the key places in the country, except for a few, are now Republican dominated. So with this abject failure to begin the recovery process, the leadership, the hierarchy must go. As a matter of fact, I don't understand why they haven't apologized to their constituency and then resign themselves. That's just a natural part of the physical aspect of ridding yourselves of something that isn't working and getting better. If the body has a poison in it, you can't go out and try and cure yourself until you rid yourself of the poison. So they got to get out. That's the physical aspect of it. And I think your listeners can understand it from that perspective. Now, once that is done, you then have to address what I call spiritual / religious component. Now, by that, I mean this. Probably the most stated comment following the election was the following: God is still in control. This is true. God was in control before the election. So that means this: if you were a campaign worker and you were trying to go out into the community and get people to vote, and you went and knocked on somebody's door and you asked them to go out there and vote, and if that person said to you, "Well, am I going to vote? God is in control," well, then you would probably nod and say, "This is true, but," and it's the but is what comes after the but is what you are going to use to try and convince the person to vote in the first place. So now, after the election is over and your side has lost, I think it's fairly disingenuous to come out telling you, man, well, God is still in control. We got that. That's like the given in geometry. We understand that. But maybe it would be wiser to use the line from the movie The Color Purple. You remember when Sugar was sitting up there and they came by there on that Sunday morning and then her daddy pastor told him to start singing a certain song and the choir started singing God's trying to tell you something. Well, see, and then that hit Sugar. Well, is it not wise that those who are feeling all this downtrodden and want to go on what I call the spiritual religious side, could it not be that God is trying to tell you something? Maybe God is trying to tell you something by putting you, quote, in this situation, that maybe the path that you have been taking up to this point was not the right path. And since you refuse to listen, he decided to tell you something in another way and put you in a situation where we are now. That should and could be a way that we can look at this particular perspective, speaking purely from a spiritual / religious perspective. Now, this brings us to the third component, which has the mental aspect of it. And that is this. See, in order to do a full recovery, or even to commence with the recovery, you have to put yourself in a position mentally where you have cleaned yourself of that which has polluted you in the past, so that you now with clarity can look at ways to improve the state of being that you're in, and you can look at yourself and the world with much clarity. Within our community, there is a great divide that is being overlooked by a number of people who have been given the charge of looking and seeing what's going on with us. You know, that great divide, we think, is something we call generational. But even though that has a part in all of this, there are some underlying things that have to be thought of mentally and accepted mentally before we can really get in depth in terms of the recovery process. The first thing, and then I'm going to stop at that point. I want to over talk here. The first thing we have to understand is, what do we really want? You know, I'm an old school guy, so I used to hear, I'm still listening to songs that talk about, you know, revolutions and things like that. But I look at revolution from the concept and definition of change, simply change. Revolution as in change. Well, you may have a component part with our community that really wants, quote, the revolution, you know, change. But you have another part, which we don't talk about, whose desire is not for revolution or change. Instead, their desire is for alteration. Now, what do I mean by alteration? You know, Vince, you know, it's like when you have a suit in your wardrobe, and either you gotten too small or too big for, you take it to the cleaners and say, I need this altered to fit the size that I am presently. Well, alteration is just that. The thing exists, but it's just altered to fit you. It's not a revolution. You're not getting a new suit. It's the same suit, but you just made some adjustments to it. Well, we have a segment in our community that's exactly what they want. It's called a black bourgeoisie, which we don't talk about. It's not about a revolution. They're about we will need an alteration. Well, the two don't necessarily meet. The problem being, those in the revolution type mindset, tend to be those who have not gotten anything out of the system over the years. Those who are in the, well, we need a alteration concept, have benefited from the system. And so they don't want no change. They're happy the way that they are. You know, they just need some little dabbling here and there to get things straight. Last point, Vince and Wayne, is this. What the election showed is that the black bourgeoisie, even though they don't want to admit it, is tied to the hip to the, quote, underclass within our community. Tied to the hip, because you need them from a political standpoint for you to exist on the level that you have become accustomed to. You see, what's going to happen over these next few months when this new administration comes in is that the one who's going to be affected is going to be the black bourgeoisie, because if they're not using the ideas and advice that Wayne is going to be giving in terms of financial matters, they're going to get stuck out here, and it's not going to be nice for them because they're already stuck out here because they usually have their jobs and careers based upon something that is either corporate or government that makes them have a job, not ownership, which means that if you have racist people coming in, you're going to be the first one that's let go. The person who doesn't have a job anyway, or is being sponsored by the government, don't have effect on them. That's why in our dear home Cleveland, you only get 46% of the people voting who are registered to vote, and the other 54 don't, because the other 54 don't have a vested interest. I'll stop at that point.
Well, it's really kind of ironic because we've been given a narrative over the past few years and past few election cycles about the importance of the middle class and all this conversation about, saving the middle class, preserving the middle class. But what we're really seeing in reality is a transfer of wealth, and the wealth is going to the 1%. I don't know if you saw the viral video earlier in the week, but it was Eddie Glaude, and I don't know who the person he was talking to was. I can't remember her name, but I do remember the gist of what she said. And she talked about America being the most prosperous nation on earth. And when I heard her say that, I was thinking, well, wait a minute. 1% of this prosperous nation has 99% of the wealth. So 99% of the population is not really enjoying the fruits of that. So when you say this nation is wealthy, you're not talking about the entire nation. You're talking about a very small segment of it. So we can believe the hype, but in reality, it's just hype. Now, Brother Wayne, you wrote this book, Ancient Future. In the very first chapter, you're talking about this idea that the universe is mental. So our perception of reality is shaped by our minds, and it's shaped by the information that we receive. And we receive a lot of information these days. We live in an age of information because we're sitting on cell phones and computers for hours and hours a day, and we're taking in all this information. So how we see the world is shaped by the things that we are perceiving. And Brother Silas, you talked about this idea of, well, maybe you didn't use these terms, but lower vibration, emotion. Just like what people were feeling when they tuned into that fight between Jake Paul and Mike Tyson last night and watched that debacle and really got hornswaggled because it was a fight that didn't really mean anything. It wasn't for the heavyweight championship of the world. It was just a fight that had a purse of $60 million or something like that, and people around the world watching something that really didn't mean anything. We have all these things coming at us and things that take us into the state of emotion. And the issue with it is that emotion is energy in motion. And this emotion that we're dealing with is something that really locks us into a survival, and here's that word again, mentality. Brother Wayne, could you talk to us about the importance of understanding what our mental state is and how that plays a role in, I guess, disaffecting us from the chaos and confusion that we're experiencing in our country right now?
Yeah, definitely. I think that there are a couple of programs that are running simultaneously, and one is put out front that we're very aware of. We see it in media and various streams of activity on the social cultural levels. But then there's another program that runs and kind of undergirds what goes on in the culture and the social strata of things that we find to be intangible, and we don't really pay it a lot of attention because it's not put in our face. Um, One of the things that shapes our daily reality is what's called the reticular activating system. And the reticular activating system is a part of the brain that is very sensitive to being programmed by environmental aspects and dynamics. And you have to look at what you're being fed. And that is so important because what you're being fed actually goes into the creation of how you relate and perceive your daily realities. And the thing with the reticular activating system is that it's profound. It because its resonance is based on frequency and magnetism, which means that if you feel that you're less than, the reticular activating system literally goes out into the environment and finds those things to support that belief.
Mhm.
If you feel that you are empowered, the reticular activating system goes out and through magnetism and frequency finds those things to support that reality and brings them back. And you actually use that as fuel to keep building, expanding, and creating the various levels of abundance for yourself. But if you're looking at, well, I'm not liked, then that is supported by your own mechanism. If you feel that you're less than, that, you're poverty driven
Yep.
and therefore live in a poverty, operate in a poverty consciousness, then that's where you're going to be because you're actually creating that daily reality for yourself on the
Yeah.
continuum. So the idea that we create our own realities is it looms as a an axiom within our own body mind because we're living it minute to minute, day to day by what we believe.
Absolutely.
Yeah, so when you put things in those terms and you look at the idea that we kind of get locked into this victim mentality, it's a daily thing. We react to the things that are going on around us, the things that we're told. For instance, we're told we're minorities, and it might seem like a small thing, but when you look at yourself as lesser than something else and that reticular activation system kicks in, then it creates that reality for you, even though it's not true. There are more
Exactly.
African people on this planet than anybody else. And we're all one family. Brother Silas and I talked about this yesterday. We're all one family. So why do we see ourselves as anything else than what we are? Because we believe what we're being told. When we
Mhm.
look at it in terms of education, we're having these battles about books being banned and CRT being banned in colleges and universities and so forth and so on. Uh, Last week, I went to the barber shop and I had a very interesting conversation with one of the barbers in the shop. And we were talking about history. And I was just saying that it's important for us to know who we were in the past so that we know who we are right now. And who we were in the past is not defined by 400 years of chattel slavery here in America and between Africa and the Americas. Who we are is shaped by our entire history. And it was also kind of ironic that he invoked the name Imhotep, which was a clue to me that he knew something about the past, but he was trying to say that it was unimportant for us to know the past. And I had to vehemently disagree, even though I disagreed agreeably. So I wasn't going to make the brother an enemy just because we didn't agree about that. But I
Especially
just
when you're
found,
getting ready to sit in the chair to get your hair cut.
well, he wasn't the one cutting my hair, but the barber that was cutting my hair noticed how animated I was, and he told me not to say anything because he was cutting the front line of my head, and my brow just kept furrowing. So I had to I had to save what I had to say for later. But the whole point of it is, it all centers around the power to define. And we
Yeah.
accept the labels that we're given. And as a result of that, we experience life in a way that does not put us in control because we default to our lower selves and we don't ascend to the higher self that allows us to create a reality that best serves us and not succumb to a reality that is created for us. What are your thoughts, Wayne?
I definitely, I agree 100%. Um, the thing about history, and a lot of people, they feel history is not a relevant condition, that needs to be embraced by us. But it really is, because if nothing else, history gives us a springboard to move us forward that we can use in our daily realities to take us into higher levels of strata to embrace and experience higher levels and more refined levels of abundance. And if you know that you're coming from that, then that speaks volumes to you, or should, with respect to where you can go, with creating the reality that you want to have for yourself. But if you feel that you've never been anywhere, you've never done anything, your culture as a whole has not accomplished and created a cultural imprint on the world, on humanity, then that's what you carry. And so you operate and act from a level of deficit every minute of every day. You can't move forward like that. Um, I think one of the things with respect to us as a people, as a community, is we don't do the necessary investigative research to keep us relevant. We listen to what everyone else is saying. I mean, we get our political information from The View. Whoopi Goldberg, she's dictating what our thoughts should be. And this is with the election. What happened is that, oh man, like the mayor of New York, he really framed it very, very well. And he basically said that the Democratic Party did not like deal with the issues that people were having to wrestle with on the daily. And they made everything about demonizing Trump. That's where all the energy went into. And I found it to be hilarious, because the reason that the Democratic Party could not elaborate on the issues that the people were really having to be challenged with on the daily was that most of those issues were created in the last 4 years. So they didn't have the basis to really go in and talk about how to rectify something that they created. But then you have to go into who controls, manipulates, and directs the Democratic Party. And that's when you get into the dynamic of the globalist regime. The globalist, the elite regiment that is in control of so much of what transpires in the world, especially as what that looks like moving into the various countries and nation states of the world. And if you don't take that piece and integrate it into our own political machine, you're missing a large part of the problem and the issue at hand. So, our issue as Black people in this country is that we don't, when we hear terms like the deep state, we have no idea what that means.
No.
The deep state to us is only in movies. You know, Hydra. You know that's the deep state to us. But no, the deep state is the WEF. The deep state is Klaus Schwab. We know nothing about that stuff. You know, I did a lecture up. I was in New York. Over 100 people in the room. I asked, how many of you all know about the WEF and Klaus Schwab? Only one person, one, raised their hand and made the statement that is the title of the WF, which is, you will own nothing and be happy.
Mm-hmm.
Now, to have an individual step out and address humanity with such a statement should let you know this is a very powerful individual, because he's telling the entire Western Hemisphere, we're going through a dramatic reset. And when we come out of this reset on the other side, because the Great Reset is going to be all about a shift of wealth, as you stated earlier. But in that shift, we, the middle class, will be completely annihilated and we will own nothing, but yet we'll be happy.
Well,
Those are the issues that we have to deal with because we don't go that deep.
yeah. It's really interesting, Brother Wayne, when you talk about currency and you talk about money and you talk about mentality, because we operate based on a perception of lack, scarcity.
Yes.
You know, the issue is always there's not enough money. So we're always cutting back on things. We don't have enough money so that we have art in our educational system. We have one or two schools that have art programs and everybody else is without it. And why? Because we don't have enough money. But at the same time, Bitcoin went up to over $90,000 a coin. And BlackRock and Fidelity and all these companies are buying up all of this digital currency that we, in large part, know absolutely nothing about because we've been scared away from it. And at
Exactly.
the same time, you got the Democrats, i.e., Elizabeth Warren, i.e., Maxine Waters, i.e., others, i.e., Joe Biden, that have said, no, cryptocurrency is evil. It's being used for money laundering. It's used for being illicit. It's being used for illicit purposes. Christine Lagarde implying the same thing over in Europe with the European Central Bank. But at the same time, again, you have all this capital flowing into the crypto markets.
Exactly.
So which one is it?
Yeah.
You know, you
Speaking out
got
of both sides of their mouth.
both sides of the mouth. They don't want you to own cryptocurrency, but they don't want you to have over $500 to give somebody for something in exchange for something else, because if you're using cash, you're doing something underhanded.
Mm-hmm. All of
You
it.
know, so
And the
we're
deep thing is the deep thing about that whole digital piece is you have the cryptocurrencies that the big, corporations are now embracing and going after like there's no tomorrow. And we will get the short end of the stick as being the public, because they want to give us CBDCs. So they want to bring in central bank digital currencies, make those relevant, and that's what we'll get. Now, as you know, central bank digital currencies are basically a tracking system that will put us in a place where everything we do will be monitored and recorded and put into some huge data bank that they will be able to access. And the other thing is that CBDCs all have a expiration date, so they
Yeah.
expire every 30 days, which puts the government in control of what we do, in the sense that they have to provide for us again, you know, on optimum levels of keeping us in survival. But
Mm-hmm.
it's survival mode,
All of it.
because all of these systems that really are coming into play, that have been brought into play, have arrived in the last 4 years. Again,
Mm-hmm.
universal basic income, the concept of that, social credit scoring system, the concept of that, CBDCs, the concept of that. Now, the scary part is what's going to be implemented to force people to occupy and utilize those different dynamics, cultural dynamics, and shifts, because they all feed into the Great Reset. And we need to stop and think about, what does the Great Reset really mean? Because we don't know. And we don't stop to take the time and effort to think about how it's going to impact us. We don't know how CBDCs are going to impact us. Universal basic income is going to impact us. When you have somebody paying you, you don't get something for nothing. You don't, you're going to give up something substantial in terms of just your sovereignty if you have the government paying you every single day.
Well, from where I'm sitting, there are things that are going on right now that lead to or lend themselves to citizens being subsidized in some kind of way. But when you look at those subsidies, those things are things that are intended to control. For instance, we got stimulus checks a couple years ago. Everybody was happy that they were getting money. But what they didn't understand was part of the game was to give them money to spend so it would stimulate the economy. In the process of stimulating the economy, you had inflation because you created all this extra money.
Right.
And then the second thing is, people got that money and they did exactly what they wanted them to do. They spent it, but they didn't spend it on something that could grow. They spent it
Jordan,
on something that, here today, gone tomorrow. Buy a car, it depreciates, it's worth less than it was when you purchased it. It's all a game, and the key idea is control. You talked about central bank digital currencies having a 30-day life.
Yeah.
So if they got a 30-day life, then the intent is not for you to take that money and to create more money with it. The intent is for you to get the money and spend it. We're living in an age now where they're creating machines to replace workers. So at a certain point, they're going to have to give people something because they took their jobs away from them, you know. So again, it's all about control, and it's either you are going to control yourself or something or someone else is going to control you, which brings us back to understanding what the World Economic Forum is, what their plans are. There's a document called the Great Reset. If you're diligent, you can go online and find a PDF for free, and you can read all about what they want to do. But the interesting thing, too, brothers, is that despite the plans that they have for us, things don't always go as they planned, and the election is the evidence of that. Brother Silas, you have been involved in education for a long time, and I'm just wondering what your thoughts are in terms of what we can do to educate our people about this financial situation that we just talked about. What can we do to bring people into an awareness of the things that they can be doing right now? Because right now, based on the information that I'm receiving and Brother Wayne is receiving, right now is time to get into the game of cryptocurrency simply because of the major moves that are being made by the players on earth who understand that system and did a 180. You know, Larry Fink was against cryptocurrency 4 years ago, and now he's the biggest purchaser on the planet.
Well,
What are your thoughts, Brother Silas?
my thoughts are, again, go back to what I was saying about the three steps initially. See, when Wayne was talking about you will have nothing and you will be happy, he's talking about the middle class, because the poor are already in that state and have been in that state. They have been without and have been happy. My To piggyback on something you were just talking about, Vince, quickly, the stimulus checks. See, from my perspective, even then, I thought it was a test. It was the same kind of test you get when you're trying to bring forth medicines and anything else. You got to have guinea pigs out there. And
Exactly.
the test of the stimulus check was simply this: let's see what will they accept the money, because see, it's free. We're gonna see it free, and will they go along with the program? They're gonna spend it where we want them to spend. So if they do it and there's no blowback on it, now we can implement it really in mass and on a regular basis, and they will be happy, because what did you say? They was happy. That's the key. Now, when I was talking about the first two steps, meaning about the hierarchy, when D and C needed to apologize and then quit, and then when I went into the part about the religion, the spiritual aspect, and the last part was mental, to get to what my brother Wayne was speaking of in terms of the whole financial dynamic here. You have to have a clarity of mind to understand the steps that need to be taken. Now, what does clarity of mind entail? Well, it entails moving away from the reality that, from a political standpoint, both parties, as the Indians said, two wings of the same bird. That's why there's never any major fluctuation or deviation, because you think that there's this big diversity, this big chasm between everybody. Think about it when you start looking to policy implementation and the result thereof. Two wings, same bird. Now, let me give you, because see, one of the major barometers within the Black community, not politics, it's not the church, it's music. Explain to me, brothers, how 50 plus years ago, brothers like Gil Scott, brothers like Marvin Gaye, groups like the Last Poets, they can make songs in 1970 or 69 or 72 and 73, and it is as relevant today. What is this? This is November, whatever date this is, 2024. It is as relevant today as it was when I was grooving on them way back, in 1970. How can that be? It can only be if what is happening is what, this is an Ashley word here, a term, we are in a holding pattern. Holding pattern means this: when it's talking about vibrationally, when it's talking about evolutionary, when it's talking about anything in life, it means that you're doing the same thing. I've been on flights that, well, we know we can't land here, so what do? We fly around the airport for an hour, so dump some fuel, so that then we can have the opportunity to land. I've been, and y'all gonna have in a few weeks when the snow come in, you're gonna be at the airport, but we can't take off here, because we have an impediment. Well, that's what's happened to us as a people, politically, socially, physically, mentally. It's been a holding pattern. Why? Because those that we refer to, those that we rely on, our crutches to lead us out from an educational standpoint, you've been fed the same thing, and you're going to get the same result. The same thing. Vince, you made an excellent point when we listed ourselves as the quote minority. We've been holding on now for 50-some years, knowing that's not the case. But not from our leadership perspective, because it keeps them in their personal position. Think about it now. You want, and I want to say, do you from the hierarchy wants? We're mad because the people in the hood didn't vote. You don't even have a connection to the hood. First of all, you're not feeling their pain, because if you're making a couple $100,000 a year in your position, let's use an example. If you're in Congress, and let's say you make $180,000 a year, well, see, your whole thought pattern is not the same as the constituency that you have that's not even getting 40. You don't think the same way. You don't think black people try to avoid the hood. But you tell me about the opportunity corridor. Don't trust me. Them people who got money at Cleveland Clinic, they're on the opportunity corridor trying to get out too, because they scared of the hood just like white folks are. They have the same mentality. Same thing. Because what they are looking at is from a different lens. So when you start talking about education, and Eddie Block, when he made his point, when you talk about 1% owning 99%, there's another breakdown within that category. You see, that 1% needs certain humans to do certain things. And that's where the black bourgeois come in. I mean, see, I don't have to put my head in the sand. I'm thinking about, let's say, if I do my own personal testimony, I got a house here in Miami. Got one up there in Cleveland. So I'm not thinking about the same way that someone is thinking that's sitting down there in Glenville, Vince, right now. I'm not thinking the same way. I have friends close friends, who are part of the black bourgeoisie, and they are doing quite well and will continue to do so. So therefore, and they're the ones that are making the policy for the underlings. It's not them. When it comes down to making strategy for what we're going to do, the people going forth, when you could look at MSNBC, CNN, all those, you're not going to have somebody from down the way telling their plight. You're going to have people who they have paid good money. You see, once they get that good money, they're not living there. They're moving elsewhere. They're moving amongst the same people that they call themselves adverse to, but they're not adverse. It's the same. It's two wings of the same bird. That's what's happening now. So what the question becomes, how do we recover and move things? We move things by understanding first that because I have been blessed doesn't mean then that I'm really going to turn my back on my brother who is not blessed, because maybe the reason why I got blessed is because they didn't want my brother to be blessed, but they like me, so therefore I got the opportunity. It wasn't that I pulled up by my own bootstraps. It was because of understanding what was going on and actually trying to duck and dodge in the matrix so I wouldn't get caught up in it. Same way as my brother Wayne, from early on. Others didn't necessarily have that inclination because it wasn't fed to them. As an educator, as leaders, We have to change the thought pattern so that the ultimate recovery is beneficial. So when you start talking about crypto, look who was talking bad about it initially. It wasn't, oh, it was Trump. No, the one you call your leader that talk bad about it. Well, wait a minute now. Who am I supposed to believe here? Because guess what? As we now get down here into the pattern, what's happening is this. They've been dabbling in it all along because, see, that one thing about financiers, the 1% and the people that they are controlling, they love to play both ends against the middle. We the only ones that go hook, line, and sinker, believing. You see, getting hoodwinked, bamboo, boozled, led astray, and run amok because we fall and go drink that Kool-Aid. And then we look back up and say, oh man, I don't believe this. I'm shocked because you wasn't looking at it through the right lens. So we got to be like optometrists, take these people's glasses off, take them contacts out, and say, we got to change here. You need some cataract surgery because your lens is messed up. We got to admit that. Top down, bottom up. We got to admit that. And then we say, if we messed up, what are the basic things that we're going to have to do? What are the basic things that we're going to have to look out for so that we can do the proper steps toward growing? Lastly, I'll just say, you use your life skill examples. If when a person is out of shape and they're trying to get in shape, don't think you're gonna get down there and lift the gym with the weights the first day. It's not gonna happen. Don't think that you're gonna get in a yoga position. No, you too stiff. It's not going to happen. But what you got to do is be able to learn from those who have already been there and understand what's going on, and then because your mind is clear and ready to receive the information. Let me emphasize that. Your mind is clear and ready to receive the information because you're no longer being bamboozled. Then you can take the preliminary steps to move in the direction that you need to go to. And you know what happens when you start doing that? The vibration level within you begins to change. And you can use all kinds of different terms because tomorrow is Sunday. They can say, oh, the Holy Spirit hit me and I started to move up. Yeah, well, the whole key is moving up. I don't care what you call it hitting you. You got to be able to move up. And we ain't moved up in at least 50 years. That's why what's going on sounds just as good to me today as it did in 1970.
That's a great place for us to take this break. And I'm just going to invoke what you just mentioned, and that is the importance of raising your vibration. Mm-hmm. And I'm going to let Wayne talk to us about what vibrations are and how you can benefit from raising your vibration on the other side. I'm going to take this opportunity to also let you know that you are listening to 360 Info Network right here on AM 1490 WERE. My guests are Dr. Silas Ashley, a retired educator and attorney, and Brother Wayne B. Chandler, who is an author and a researcher, and we're going to get the benefit of that research on the other side. Also, just want to make this ask. I have to do this because it's in the interest of bringing this program to you. We are simulcasting on YouTube, on my YouTube channel, and it would be great if you could go to my YouTube channel. It bears my name, and just click the subscribe button. If you like these broadcasts, make a comment, hit the notification bell so that you can get notifications as to when we deliver this content to you. We're giving you information that you're not getting through some of the mainstream media, and it's really important for us to have alternative views, and that's what we do with this platform. Also want to mention again before we conclude the radio broadcast that there is an event at Larchmere Arts. It is from noon to 8 p.m. It's called R&B Studio. Rodney Carpenter, Bonnie Venable, they have an art marketplace set up at Larchmere Arts, and there is very reasonably priced artwork there. It's really important for us to collect art because art is one of those things, speaking of investments, that you can invest in and grow in terms of value. You can also purchase stocks that, the product for that stock is art. So art is definitely a vehicle for transforming your financial future. We're going to be talking about finances and all that good stuff. We're going to jump into some metaphysics via Wayne Chandler. And we're going to talk about financial fitness because, I think Brother Silas mentioned it a few moments ago how important fitness is, and we can go to the gym and we can work out, but we also have to be financially fit. And if you're not doing certain things like investing, like saving, like doing your homework, like looking into certain insurance products, you're going to be in that place where, based on the World Economic Forum, you will own nothing and be happy. And one real quick thing about that, not owning is not necessarily a bad thing. The issue is controlling assets through creating trusts in which your name isn't attached to things, but you still get the benefit of your control of those things. So that's exactly the plan that they're exercising, and it's probably something that we need to consider doing as well. Again, I would like to thank everyone for joining us on this side, on the radio side, but I want to invite you to continue watching us. You can go to my YouTube channel. You can also go to the 360 Info Network Facebook page. You can go to my Facebook page, and you'll be able to continue to watch this program. Also, just want to give a shout out to our engineer, Tone Harley. Tone has been hooking us up for quite, I'm going to say years, because it has been years that he has been in the chair in the studio. And thanks to him, we're able to facilitate these broadcasts. So again, thanks to Tone Harley for doing the engineer thing for 360 Info Network and doing it so effectively. As always, I'd like to invite you to know yourself, love yourself, be yourself, do everything that you can to have a great day today. Peace, you all, and we'll see you on YouTube.
Peace.
So we are continuing our broadcast on YouTube and Facebook. I have with me Dr. Silas Ashley, one of my good Kent State University brethren. And I also have Brother Wayne Chandler, who grew up with Silas Ashley here in Cleveland. Silas is down there in Miami enjoying the sunshine. And man, I don't want to say that I'm jealous, but for a long time, I've entertained the idea of being somewhere warm and sunny during the winter months. It's something that our colleague Dr. Quad David Whitaker does. He's over in Ghana right now, and who knows? Maybe in the next few years, I'll be joining him across the pond in that great place on the other side of the world called Africa. Brother Wayne, I want to dive into some of the things that we can do right now to create and generate wealth. And I know that part of it is just the paradigm shift in terms of your attitude towards money. Sometimes when you have this idea of scarcity, then you're going to hold on to your money. You're going to penny pinch. You're going to, be in a desperate mind state because you are concerned and afraid that you won't have enough to last. But on the other hand, if you have a different attitude towards money and you see it as currency and you allow that currency to flow, then you don't operate out of a fear or concern that you won't have, because you already have used your reticular activation system to let yourself know that you live in abundance and you live in a state of gratitude. And as a result, you get cooperation from a universe that wants you to succeed. Let's talk first about the importance of changing your attitude, and then let's talk about some strategies, things that you can do to generate wealth for yourself. And I just want to dispel the notion about getting rich quick, because a lot of people think that, you can get rich overnight, but actually it's important to be strategic, to develop things that have an ability to grow over time. And it may be a year, maybe a couple years, it may be 5 years. But the important thing, as I see it, is to have multiple income streams and have an awareness of things that you can do to create abundance for yourself. So let's first talk about the importance of the mental paradigm shift, and then let's talk about some specific things that you can do to generate resources for yourself and your family.
Yeah, I think you know, Silas said quite a bit in his last segment, um, which really are very substantial things that should be unpacked because they integrate and kind of undergrid one with the other. The idea of when we talk about you will own nothing and be happy, that the focus of that is on the middle class. And that's very relevant when it comes to the necessity for creating systems of change within the mindset to create what I call emotional intelligence, to have emotional intelligence about what it is you need and want to bring into your life and how you need those specifics to function. Um, the middle class being in that position, what Silas was saying in terms of the last 50 years, we have been given the illusion of progress. And in that illusion of progress, we are now at a crossroads where our reality is about to shift dramatically. And if we have not prepared ourselves for this shift, we're going to be, I want to say we'll have hell to pay, but, we're going to be in a very challenging situation. And a lot of that situation, because one of the things, as Silas was saying, that upholds our current, I guess, level of middle class status is just that. It's the status that we carry. But if you have not made the necessary reformations to like really go in and create a means of sustaining that status in these days in time, you're going to come to a place where you find that your status is no longer relevant. And once you get to that place where your status is not relevant, it's going to be based on the fact that you've made all of the wrong decisions financially to create the kind of financial platform that you need in these days and time and where we're going to operate from and on. So most of us know when Silas was talking about, just what really hasn't changed, that illusion that has been fed to us. The song that comes to my mind are two. One is What's Going On by Marvin Gaye, and The Temptations, The World is a Ball of Confusion. When you listen to the lyrics in both of those, you're going to ask yourself, what has really changed? Because those two songs are prophesizing today because nothing has shifted. Nothing has really shifted. The model remains the same. They create these paradigms to create the illusion of progress, to create the illusion of a cultural shifting mechanism that has taken place. But nothing has really imprinted on the model that we live off of. And that's what needs and has to change. So, looking at what's relevant in terms of transformation, when we step into 2025, we'll have 15 years before we step into the age of Aquarius. And through the music, we know what that's about because the fifth dimension blasted us with the age of Aquarius and the significance of that, what that means. But this is the thing about the age of Aquarius. The age of Aquarius is a clean, spotless vibrational frequency that's all about expansion of body, mind, spirit. And you can't walk into that house, step into that house with muddy shoes. So, between what transpires in 2025 up until the time we enter that house, reflecting the age of Aquarius, massive shifts and intense change is going to be upon us. What all of that looks like, I can't say, but I can say that it's our individual responsibility to work with who and what we are and elevate our own specific frequency to bring emotional intelligence and spiritual clarity to our body, mind, spirit, so that we can navigate the direction properly of where it is that we need to go.
We're going to talk about some strategies because I have some things in mind, and I've learned some of these things through my association with you, but I have to ask an appropriate qualifying or an appropriate follow-up question. I'm sorry. How do you elevate your frequency?
There are a variety of different ways because first thing you have to really embrace the reality that you are not a three-dimensional entity, which means that there are certain internal constructs within your body mind that once accessed will elevate your life-based spiritual, mental, and emotional frequencies to move you into a place where once you access that reality internally, your reticular activating system automatically will shift. The breath is very, very powerful, and doing specific patterns of breathing literally creates different imprints on how we think, feel, and relate to the world in and around us. It creates levels of reality because there are systems of activation that are now functional that previously were dormant.
Yep.
So, going through specific types of practices that incorporate the breath, this is what you get. You get the release of a compound called anandamide. Anandamide is a compound, they call it the bliss hormone. It's a compound that's released from the pineal or pineal gland and the pituitary to a lesser extent. But the whole construct of this particular particulate is to shift and elevate consciousness. Its release into the body mind comes through doing specific breathing practices. Like the system that I use is called Qigong. Qigong literally deals with, it means just the breath of life, that life is breath, breath is energy, energy is transformation and change. Once proper intention is applied to it. So, through doing specific types of practices in Qigong, you are moved from your basically your three-dimensional state of limitation into your natural state, which is 4D. This was the whole symbolism that was stated in the Matrix with the red pill and the blue pill. When Morpheus says to Neo, you know that there's something wrong with the world, but you don't know what it is, but it's there, driving you mad like a splinter in your mind. Do you know what I'm talking about? And Neo goes, the Matrix, and he says, yeah, do you want to know what it is? And then he goes through this breakdown of what the Matrix is. You see it when you turn on your television set. You experience, you feel it when you go to school, when you go to work, when you pay your taxes. It's the world that's been pulled over your eyes to blind you from the truth. And then Neo goes, what truth? And Morpheus says that you, like everyone else, was born into bondage. You are a slave, born into bondage, born into limitation, born into a state, massive state of mental, emotional control. And this is what we live every single day. And the reason that we're able to be manipulated to this extent is because we're living outside of our natural self. We're trying to occupy and navigate a three-dimensional construct that's all based on limitation, instead of moving into who and what we really are as fourth dimensional entities, where we snap our fingers and manifest abundance.
I got to ask this question then, Brother Wayne. The red pill or the blue pill?
There
Which
it is.
one?
Yeah, it's the red pill all the way.
Okay. All right. I want to talk about some things that we've discussed over the past couple of years and just kind of bring our viewing audience into an awareness of what's going on. Um, I said earlier that Bitcoin hit 90,000 per coin. Bitcoin is something that has a finite supply, and they're only looking at creating 21 million of these coins. And as a result of this limited supply, there's this great energy around having this particular commodity, even though it's digital, even though you can't hold it in your hand. You might not say that it's tangible like silver or gold, but it is something that represents value. So, considering the things that have happened within the past couple years and the 180 that we talked about that BlackRock had and some of these other investment entities, what can we do right now to participate in this, because this is where part of that wealth transfer is taking place. As Bitcoin increases in value, there are other coins that are increasing in value exponentially more. There are over 2 million at last count. There are probably more than that by now, because I looked at that statistic maybe 4 or 5 months ago. There are probably a lot more cryptocurrencies right now, but there are a few that really matter. And if you understand the game and you get involved in these things right now, you'll have an opportunity to take advantage of this transfer of wealth, because you'll be participating in it. So, if you could just give us a basic understanding of how it works in terms of acquiring cryptocurrency, and how you can capitalize, and I'm going to use that word, how you can capitalize on the momentum of the cryptocurrency marketplace right now.
And this is the time to capitalize on that, because we're getting ready to go into what's called a bull market with respect to the whole crypto industry. And, but again, it's a study. It's not just something you drop your money into and walk away and forget about it and come back, a couple of months later, believing that you've made and created a certain level of abundance that is life changing, which you may have done. But then it's about, well, how do you get that money into the world, and make it operable and make it functional and relevant to your daily existence. And so cryptocurrency does become a study, and the crypto coins that you want to look at are coins that offer change and a revaluation of how we operate in the world, making our lives better. See, the thing with crypto, and people get like really flabbergasted with respect to the nature of what they feel crypto is. You want to change your perspective and your vision of what crypto is through just um, using stocks as a measuring stick. So everybody's familiar with a stock and the stock market. When you look at a stock, you're looking at something that has a business concept behind it that you're wondering if it's relevant enough for you to invest in, and they're offering you to make money off of that investment as the business grows. Cryptocurrency is the same thing, only they're using coins. Those coins represent a specific business opportunity that if you invest in and it does take off, it's going to definitely deepen your pockets. That's all it is.
So yeah. Yeah. Vince, can I interject 1 second?
Mm-hmm.
Okay, it's right on what Wayne is talking about when he used the word stock. And to your audience, bear with me. I want to tell you a quick story because I think it applies to what we're just talking about here. I have 3 sons. My 2 older sons, when they were 11 years old, one was 11, one was 10. Their summer project was this. I said, you know what? Y'all gonna learn about the stock market. Okay, so what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna invest some money on your behalf. And what your job is to select the stock that you want me to invest in. They said, okay. And they went out, and after a couple of days, they came back and said, Dad, they said, we're ready. I said, okay, so what stock are you going to select? It said, we want you to invest in Hasbro toys. And so out of curiosity, I asked, why Hasbro toys? He said, because they got this thing coming out in the fall called Transformers. And it's going to be a huge hit, particularly when you get around Christmas and all that. It's going to hit big. And so I said to my sons, well, how do you know this? And my son's reply was this: because we're kids, we know what we like. And so it's going to be this. And I invested in Hasbro that summer. Lo and behold, and lo, Transformers blew up. My statement to the audience is this: stocks, crypto, Bitcoin, etc., it is not, quote, hard. Wayne was right about the mechanism, how it works. It's about knowledge and understanding. And the knowledge and understanding sometimes is right before you, because we should, if you have knowledge, if your mind is clear, you have clarity to see things, you can see things happen before they happen, because the vast majority is on a frequency of 3 and you on 4, and you just like in the Matrix, you ahead of the game. You can see ahead of time when you have clarity, or if you don't have the necessary clarity, you rely on someone who does. And that's all you do when you go to the broker and he sucks you in and thinking you invest in A, B, C, and D, because he woos you with his alleged knowledge. But what my sons demonstrated me at the time was their answer. He said, because we're kids, we know. It's the same way out there, Vincent Wayne. You know, is that right now you can say, you know what, this is getting ready to happen in a few months. I can see this getting ready to come down the pipe. Now, if you move on it, there is a more if I've learned in dabbling, more than 70% chance that it's going to happen. Why? Because I'm ahead of the curve. I can see. So it's a matter of you believing in yourself that this really can happen. And it's very important. Very important. And I'm going to say this quick example and I'm gone in terms of this part. As you see Dr. Brown, Wayne, myself, and another friend, we would meet in my mother's backyard before COVID. That's why Wayne's smiling, talking about where this was going. Because this is not like rocket science. It's about what humans do and where we're going. Wayne was the scientist, not with the historian coming up. It ain't much change. We can see it. Now, I'm saying this in, I saw one of the people bring messages into you was another brother from Kenny named John Wilson. He was a musician. So guess what? You feel vibrations in music, Vince. You know that. See, and it keeps you ahead of the curve. And I'm telling the audience that this is important in terms of moving forward in other dynamics in life. You use what we already got. It's going to work. I guarantee it that it's going to work, because you've already raised your consciousness to see. And those folks are working with, they way behind you on the grid in that. And that's what this is all about. And look how many people you bring in with you when you go from that perspective.
Well, Brother Silas, your sons basically gave you what Wayne talked about, and that is understanding how the game works. So they were able to understand trends, and they knew that Transformers was going to be big. So they implored you to invest in that, and I'm assuming that it paid off handsomely. In the crypto world, it's the same thing. What happens is you invest in projects that have tremendous promise and room for growth. If you had invested in Microsoft, in Apple, in Amazon, in Nvidia, when these projects were first getting off the ground, right now you'd be a millionaire and you didn't have to put a whole lot of money into it. Well, it's the same way with penny stocks. It's the same way with cryptocurrencies. You can find cryptocurrencies that don't really cost a lot right now, but they're attached to a project that has some type of benefit through its purpose. So you identify those things, and you invest in those things. You monitor them, as Brother Wayne indicated to you, and you study it, and you get the benefit from that. And there are people who are becoming millionaires today. Before the crypto markets took their turn a few years ago, there were people who were jumping in on stuff at the early stages and making all kinds of money. And as we said earlier in the program, we're at that point right now. We're in the midst of a bull market that some are saying is just taking off. So timing is everything when it comes to investments. And there are certain things that you can do, like dollar cost averaging, picking the right projects, some coins that you are hodling or holding on to for dear life. There are things that you can do. Again, I'm going to use the word capitalize, even though, capitalism has its issues, especially when there's no compassion involved in it. But again, there are things that you can do right now that you can take advantage of the momentum that is in this market, and even to a certain extent in the stock market, because, the stock market has been reaching all-time highs within the past year. So there are people who have money, or using money and doing things with money to their benefit. One thing I'll say before we move on to Brother Wayne is that it's really all about our attitude towards money. So those who don't have money see money as something that can be used to pay debts. So you got your mortgage or your rent, your utilities, your food, your insurance, the taxes, all the things that you have to address, because they are a measure of debt that you live with in your life. But on the other hand, the people who have money, they don't see money as something that is used to pay debts. They see money as something that can be used to grow more money. So we have to get into a mindset of using our resources to create additional resources, as opposed to just using our money to throw at something that is a deficit within our lives. The other thing that I wanted to talk about too was this idea of slavery, because it came up in our conversation. But I want to shift gears and go back to Brother Wayne and bring in the idea of precious metals, because right now we're seeing silver trading at I think somewhere around $30 an ounce. I have to look it up to see what the exact figure is, and also seeing where gold is, because it's nearing that historic high in terms of its value as well. And unlike the digital gold, real gold has something that is immutable. You hold it in your hand, you own it, you control it. And if somebody has something to offer you, you can give them that gold in exchange for that. And you don't necessarily have to deal with the bank. And then that's one other thing before I close it down in terms of this point. But we have to get to a point, and we are in a position right now, that we can become our own bank, because reality is that the banks control the money. And when they have our money, it's not our money, it's their money. Brother Wayne?
Yeah, that's very, very accurate, and 2025, is going to be pretty intense on the financial piece. And a lot of global financial analysts are really looking at a collapse of the banking system, which is going to be devastating for most people. But you have to, once again, have an understanding of the game. And the game is the release and bringing onto the financial stage these CBDCs by any means necessary. And the central banks, control the fluidity of cash on a global scale. So they now are creating this financial upheaval that are going to put people in a very precarious financial position. And then they are going to come uh, up with, we have CBDCs for you all, and we're here to save you. Just step on board, and your future is guaranteed. Now, that's going to open up a whole nother can of worms that I can't even begin to get into. But the thing that we really need to do, want to do, should do, we have the digital piece, but you don't want to put all of your apples in one basket. So, with all of your investments, you want to diversify. So, you want to have your crypto, you want to look into Bitcoin, but you also want to have your silver and you also want to have gold. Silver is a spendable asset, and we will definitely go back to that. Gold is an asset that you hold that really reflects your financial stability and authenticity. So with gold, you're always in the game. With silver, you're in the game, but also using it as a spendable commodity. It's because it's in that asset class. We used in this country, we used silver, all the coins that we had, we used up until 1964. Those coins were 90% silver. They took those coins off of the market, reclassified them as junk silver, and now, the value of those coins has risen exponentially. I mean, you have a dime, 10 cents, and the average cost of a dime right now is $10. That's the average cost, between $10 to $13. So you can imagine what a 50-cent piece is, a Walking Liberty 50-cent piece, or Benjamin Franklin 50-cent piece. You're looking at silver that's going to be able to create the kind of economic foundation that you need to have available to you to operate in really the coming years.
So
We're looking
Wayne,
at a year.
let's pause right there just so that our viewers get something tangible that they can take away from this program. What you're suggesting is that people can acquire these coins that are characterized as junk silver, and they're coins that were minted before 1965 that have a 90% silver content. So you're talking about the dimes, you're talking about quarters, you're talking about 50-cent pieces, and there were even dollar pieces. I believe, I could be wrong about that,
Yeah,
but
they're dollar pieces as well.
right. So you could acquire those coins. You might also have some of those coins that your grandmother and your grandfather may have passed down to you and part.
That's where you need to go. I mean, I just invested $70 into a mason jar full of so-called junk silver. I call it constitutional silver. And I got it off of Facebook.
Yeah.
I
So
got it
you
off of Facebook because there was an estate sale. And one of the things they were selling via the US Mint were these mason jar full of, like, junk silver coins.
right.
I
So
spent $70.
you mentioned that that dime might be worth 10 to
Right.
13
10,
dollars,
10 to $13.
but depending on when and where that coin was minted, it
It could
might
be
be
worth a
worth
lot more.
thousands of dollars. It could be
Yeah.
worth hundreds or thousands of dollars. And that's why it pays to pay attention to the coins that you have. But in addition to that, you can acquire coins like US silver dollars, like Canadian maples, those coins. You can acquire those coins and you can keep those coins and watch as the value of those coins grows. And I know we've talked about the markets being manipulated, but we also talk about the scarcity of silver on the planet and the fact that its industrial use is going to create a greater demand for it, and that will enhance the value of that commodity, i.e., silver, despite the fact that the markets are being suppressed and manipulated.
Deeply suppressed, deeply manipulated. Silver and gold will take off when the COMEX and the LBMA cease to exist. And it's coming to that place because as the global financial system becomes more and more suspect, irregular, and unstable, people are moving more and more into silver and gold as preservative financial assets. So, a lot of people, the question people are going to have initially for the here and now is, well, how can we use silver and gold? We can't walk into a store and use silver and gold and give that to the merchant owner of that facility and expect them to do something with that. So I mean, it's not relevant. And that's where you hold on to your assets because it will become relevant. But right now, there are America has the only bullion bank in the world, UPMA. It's the only bullion bank. Now, like any other bank, you can go in, you can either buy directly from them, silver and gold, or you can acquire your own silver and gold assets and deposit them directly into your account in that bullion bank. And the great thing about that bullion bank, when you open an account, you can get your own debit card that's directly connected to your account. So you can walk into any store anywhere in the world and use that card, that Visa. You can use that card that's connected to your account to buy and pay for any and everything. And
So
that's
in
the
essence,
beauty.
yeah, in essence, what you're doing is you're spending gold and or silver as
Right,
opposed to US dollars.
exactly. So
Yes.
when gold and silver become stratospheric financially, you know, your account, because the thing with UPMA that I love, personally, that I love, is that as gold and silver rise, it's not a dollar to dollar increase in your account. It's like the stock market, it's a percentage increase. So when silver went up $2, I made $620 off of that 200 that $2 increase because I'm getting paid based on percentage increases and not dollar to dollar increase.
Okay, you're dropping some real gems on us right now, and I'm thinking through what you're sharing with us. So, Brother Wayne, what you're suggesting to us is that you can hold your money as gold or silver or both, as opposed to holding your money as US dollars, which are being eroded in terms of value by inflation.
Exactly.
So, for instance, and we'll use my savings account at a certain bank that I'm not going to mention right now, but I've had $1,000 in this bank account for about 5 years. In 5 years, I've earned $1.14 in interest. If I had that same $1,000 in a UPMA account, instead of it being just regular US dollars, it's going to be silver and gold, which are going up in value as opposed to going down in value. And
Exactly.
these are things that we can do right now to preserve, because I get emails every day talking about how the banks are going to fall apart, and we know, based on our research, that the FDIC is underinsured and can't cover the $250,000 for every person that they say that they can right now.
Right.
So it's much more important to hold your asset in something that is tangible than something intangible and losing value with the day. And the same thing goes for those 401k accounts that have supposedly dollars in them that are being invested in mutual funds and other kinds of things. But on top of that, fees coming off that 1 or 2% a year over a period of time represents a substantial amount of money. But again, based on the research, you can have your 401k as gold and or silver as opposed to having it as dollars. So I just want folks out there to know that there are things that you can do, but you have to do your homework, you have to do your research, and you have to become financially fit. And the other thing I wanted to mention, you talked about going into a merchant's place of business and not necessarily, well, basically what I'm getting to is you can purchase something called gold back. And gold back is it's currency that is attached to gold, which is part of that instrument that you use to convey to that business owner who will accept it in certain states, will accept that gold back as an alternative to the US dollar. Could you talk a little bit about gold backs and how they work?
Yeah, goldbacks. Right now, there are probably about 6 states that have formally, utilized goldbacks as a form of currency and exchange. I know Rhode Island, um, uh, uh, Texas. Um, I think
Wyoming, maybe?
Wyoming is one, and there are like 3 states in the Northeast that are using goldbacks. Seattle is a city in Washington State that's using them. So goldbacks basically is a paper currency that has gold particles infused into it. Actual 24 karat gold particles that make up the currency. And the currency runs from $1 uh, increments all the way up to $20. And I didn't know how profound an investment it was becoming until I watched this program, which is one of the big Kitco Financial News. And Kitco Financial News, which is one of the biggest financial news agencies in the world, was being sponsored by Goldbacks. And that blew me away. I said, wow, that shows exactly how deeply integrated Goldbacks are now becoming in the financial fabric of the country. So basically, what we're looking for and looking at is the eradication of the current financial system, and then what's going to become a pressurized direction into precious metals, because that's inevitable, and it is going to be about for those who made the choice, those who have really taken the opportunity to make the investment into those things. Those who have not made the investment into those things, it's not going to be a happy day.
Hear you loud and clear. Dr. Ashley, you suggested to us that one of the ways that we can level the playing field is through music. And I'm just wondering, as you listen to the gems that Wayne has dropped on us, do you see any possibility that perhaps music could be used as a tool to enhance our financial literacy?
If the generation who is creating the music now, again, increase their vibration, because I believe in that generation, the vibration may have sank as opposed to even being on a holding pattern. How is it possible that in 2024 I can't even refer to any current song? Okay, I mean, let's assume that through domination, racism, whatever, that they're controlling the music that we hear. I can buy that, but I had the unfortunate experience of researching these these companies lately, and I saw some of the names of some of the artists, and then what they had 25 little Joe, little John, little Rick, little this, that, the other, and they aren't, well, they wasn't talking about anything, which means that from a mental standpoint, you know, they lie when they talk about mind on my money on my mind. No, that's what's not on your mind. That's the problem, because we don't have enough on our mind musically. And when you don't have anything on your mind musically, then it's hard for us as a people to move, because we are dependent upon that, from the drum forward. That's how far back we go in there with our dependence on the vibe that's created through the music. And unfortunately, you can almost, from a historical standpoint, see where we stopped. I mean, when I say we stopped, we stopped behind. Cause see, I'm not going to even just blame all of hip hop. I would blame when they let these companies let certain people control it, because they have some dynamic young boys coming out there. 30 when hip hop started. I mean, they were KRS-One. They were coming strong. I mean, when I say strong. Now you don't have the same relevancy out here, and we, I hate to say it like that, we gonna have to wait for the next generation to come behind this one that's out there, because think about what their interests, where their interests lie. Dissing one another. I got a beef with here, and I got a beef with that one. We're mad because you didn't bring Lil Wayne to the Super Bowl. This is the mindset of the whole musical genre. We will abandon jazz on the names that we should be at. What has happened is that we have let others come in there and control the very root of our essence. And we have not only put our heads in the sand, we have let it dominate us to the point where, Vince, if we can't find the next generation, the music side will be lost. It'll be lost. And that's just so sad to me. They can't play, therefore they can't even get the vibe themselves. And even when they sign when they sample other pieces, that it's a lack of understanding, because you don't understand the dynamics that goes with that particular music. You don't understand the dynamics of what the vibrate, what that sound does when it hits you. None of those kinds of things. It's not taught. What you did? Wait a minute. I believe it was you, Vince, in the last hour, was talking about the arts in school and what you don't have. When I was in high school, in ancient times, there's certain corridors you went through at kid. You heard music all day long. That's what you heard. All we needed was JMO and ABQ is all the time. Music. The message in the music was real. Not only with word, the beat themselves, all of that. To ask the youth now, what impact does the music have on you? The response will be nowhere near what we were saying at the same age. How can that be? That the response will be nowhere near what we were talking about. I can say, I mean, I can stay for the next 30 minutes and give you song after song. That's what we heard all day long. So what does that do to your inner self? What does that do in terms of your direction? What does that do in terms of your attitude? You see, your attitude. If your music is detrimental to you, if your music is denigrating to a whole gender, if your music is about doing things that are detrimental to your people, what do you think is going to happen out there in the world? We're shocked.
Definitely.
Oh, at Tuskegee's homecoming, they had a shooting last week because the people over there listen to music that encourages that kind of behavior. That kind of behavior. So when you ask that question, Vince, and you as a musician, you understand the depths of what I'm talking about in terms of the musical influence it has, on a being. To lose that, it is such a precious commodity like gold and silver, and we don't even understand what we're losing it. And I'm like the Indian who had the tear going down his cheek when he saw someone littering. You don't understand what has happened. It's sad.
I want to jump in with what John Wilson is bringing to our conversation. He said he never recorded a record that he couldn't play for his mother. And I think that comment is reflective of an artist that has a certain level of consciousness. And I think, we have too great of expectations for some of the folks who are involved in the music industry who have no consciousness, and therefore they don't really have a message that can be of any benefit to those who listen. And then the other thing that John was talking about was just the number of record companies and how it has shrunk. So we have fewer record companies with a greater degree of control over the music products. And at the same time, we have musicians on a local level. Our friend Ismail Douglas, who Wayne is very acquainted with, who plays cultural music and has an ability to reach people not necessarily with words, but just the sound that's coming from the instruments that he's playing that have an impact on us. I guess I'm saying all of that to say that we can look at a glass being half full or half empty. And the truth of the matter is, even though we have this perception that everybody is creating music that is garbage, we also have musicians who are creating beautiful and edifying music. And I think we have to embrace them. When you talk about the music industry in general right now, we've watched it go through the changes that it's gone through. So back in the day, we had 33s, 45s, and 78 records. And then we graduated to 8 tracks. And then we graduated to cassettes. And then it was CDs. And after the CDs, it was digital music downloads. And that's where we are right now. So we have music sharing platforms like Apple Music and Spotify and Tidal and all these other platforms where musicians are being exploited and their music gets wide acceptance in terms of access by the public, but the musicians aren't really benefiting from it because they can have 50 million people listen to a song and make $5,000. Something about that is not equitable. But now we have something called NFTs, non-fungible tokens. Now we have, through the blockchain, an ability for people to create some integrity for their intellectual property, but also allow everyday people to invest in that product and put the artist in a position where they can monetize it. Of course, there's not widespread acceptance of this, but it is something that is happening. And it just brings us back to the need for us to share information about these platforms so that people can take advantage of these platforms. They can put out that music that's going to inspire revolution, Brother Silas, but they can also give people who are invested in the music an opportunity to benefit from the value of it as well. So, you know, in spite of all the chaos and confusion that exists in this world, and there's a lot of it, we're distracted every day by the shenanigans of someone who is going to be in the White House in a few months, unless something drastic happens and changes the course of that destiny. There are a lot of things to be distracted by, but then there are also things that we can tune into and benefit from. So I just want this program to be of value, and we've gotten a lot of positive feedback about our conversation today. So I'm really grateful that you joined us today just to shed light on what you were the catalyst for, Brother Silas, in terms of the concept of recovery.
Can I say one quick thing? I know you got to go. One quick thing.
Yeah.
And it's in turn to what Wayne was talking about gold and silver. And this is my quick financial advice to everybody. Pay attention to the country of Uganda. When it comes to gold, and their recent discoveries in that particular country, Uganda over the next 10 years is going to have their gold reserves is going to pass both the United States and the Soviet Union. Watch Uganda and be careful in terms of how you do it, because you can mess around here and do well understanding the source of that particular precious metal and where you can go to have access to it at a marketable price that can get you in the game, and you can benefit from it in the years coming forth. Watch Uganda. You have got my advice for the day.
All right, Brother Wayne, anything you want to add to that?
Yeah, I mean, they found like several $1 trillion worth of gold, and a lot of it was above ground. It was an amazing discovery. I think I think there's a lot. I mean, I think the program has been so holistic, and there's a lot that people can use in terms of what's come across the airwaves. Because there's a lot to unpack that we put on the table for everybody, which I think is good. Yeah, you know, we just have to get going. We have to start moving. What these next 4 years are going to look like, man, I can't wait to see what this game is going to like unravel, because I mean, we've got just having Kennedy in that position to oversee the FDA and NIH and CDC, just it gives me a sense of relief knowing that somebody is going to have our back, because that's been the state of being that I've been living in with respect to governmental political operation, is that I felt there's nobody out here that has our back. And I just want to see from a political perspective somebody that's willing to step up and say, no, you can't do this to the American people. That's it. That's all I want to see.
Okay.
Vince, thank you for your platform, because I'm just looking here in my mind. I'm in your comments. John is in California. You two are in Northeast Ohio. I'm down here in Miami. That's a hell of a triangle coming out of 1490 WERE up there. And if you can get it started like that, you see, that's how a movement starts. That's how a movement starts. And you got many other listeners here I'm not even aware of. But I just know what I can just see here. And to be that bi-coastal, that tri-coastal, and that triangular, I think kudos to you, my brother, and thanks for having us on. And so the audience know that Me and Wayne wasn't working together. I didn't know he was going to be on here, and we grew up 9 houses from each other. You know, we've been having these conversations for 60
All
years.
our life.
I had no idea he was going to be on here today. So thanks again, Vince. Thank you.
Right. Well, you know, I had Dr. George Fraser in mind to be on with us today, and I thought about it, and I said, no, it makes more sense for Brother Wayne Chandler to be on the program today. We'll look at getting on Dr. Fraser at some point, but it was just important to connect you two. And I want to bring things back to something that Wayne said that is probably the most important thing of all the things that we talked about. And that's the importance of our breath and
Yes.
controlling our breath and getting the benefit of our breath. And Wayne, you shared a video with me last week. I don't want you to think that it went unwatched, because I remember what you said about Kachari Mudra, and I remember what you said about, you know, you implementing Kachari Mudra almost constantly. You know, I've started using Kachari Mudra in my meditation. I got to be honest with you and tell you that my tongue gets tired.
It's
And
a
I
work.
wondered,
Yeah, it's a work. It's going to get tired, but you stay with it, and after a while, it makes that adjustment.
yeah. So for those who don't know about Kachari Mudra, you want to take your tongue and place it up towards the back of the upper part of your mouth and that fleshy part, and allow it to stay there. Wayne, give them Kachari Mudra, and then we'll close the program.
Yeah, there are 3 points. One teacher that I have, Montauk Chia, he breaks down Kachari Mudra with 3 specific points. One right behind the front teeth, one right, and he's using the ridge. If you take the tip of your tongue and you place it on the roof of your mouth, you're going to feel that ridge that runs from the front all the way to the back. Along that ridge are 3 points that correspond to like three basically conduits of energy that move through the body. The one that's the strongest is called the water point, and the water point is that point that Vince was talking about, that's all the way in the back of the mouth. It's where the hard palate actually dips and becomes soft and fleshy. Right in between that hard and soft tissue is the water point, and that's the point you want to access with the tip of the tongue. They call that the main thrusting route. And yeah, when you connect the tongue to any one of those points, you begin to activate a life circuit in your body that runs through the entire system and allows you to pull in energy from the stellar regions and from the earth simultaneously. And it's an energy fulfilling experience that everybody should have. I mean, it just gives you insight and the ability to manage your daily environment in a totally different way, because you're seeing, feeling, and experiencing energy in your environment in a totally different way.
And from what you're saying, it also seems a way for you to access your fourth dimensional reality.
It moves you into your fourth dimensional reality.
Right.
Okay.
Yeah.
That's some high level stuff, brother. You know, I mean, some of us don't even know what 3D is. So when you talk about 4D, you're really going to lose some folks. But again, this you got to start somewhere.
Start
So we're
somewhere.
introducing this information to you so that you can do your homework. Don't take our word for it. You know, somebody asked about, I think it was Ruben Harris asked about getting a piece of the action and that Ugandan gold. You know, we leading you to the water. We're leading to the water, but we can't drink the water for you. So we want to get you to where you need to go. But then you got to pull out the map and figure out what path you're going to take to get to the destination. But there it is. So this has been quite amazing, brothers. I want to express my gratitude to you for participating in our broadcast today, and look forward to some in the future where we can expand and expound on some of the things that we talked about today, and give folks some tools that they can use to improve the quality of their lives and detach themselves from immersion in the matrix, break out of the matrix, break out of the reality that is being designed for us to keep us in a lower vibrational existence, raise our frequencies, and find our path to freedom. Thanks for joining me on this broadcast today.
Thanks for having me on, brother.
Thanks.
All right. And as
Appreciate it.
always, know yourself, love yourself, be yourself. Thanks, Dr. Silas. Appreciate you, brother. We'll see you next time.
All right.